Hello, listeners. Welcome to Stars of the Golden Age, a show that highlights the lives of legends from film, music, and the birth of television during Hollywood's Golden Age, with a special emphasis on their lives behind the scenes. I am your host, Erin Carlson. Hey guys! It is time for a little palate cleanser and an emotional break for yours truly as I come down from being completely engrossed in Judy Garland's life for the last month. That was a rough ride, but well worth it. So as I turn my focus onto my research for the next subject that I plan to share with you, this week we will have another fun, hot off the press segment. I do plan to sprinkle these hot off the press episodes in maybe once a month or so, just so I can keep up with my research, writing, recording, and editing of our regular episodes. It's a lot of work, and I'm trying to keep something somewhat resembling a work-life balance, which I definitely have not had for a while. So these little fun episodes really help. And judging by the analytics I saw from our last hot off the press episode, I don't think you guys mind at all. I think it's really fun to dive into these old movie magazines. It is definitely a refreshing and entertaining escape from our current world. I will go back in time any day. For today's hot off the press episode, we are going all the way back to 1930. I am pulling content from the March 1930 issue of Photoplay magazine. Let's set the scene a bit before I tell you what goodies I found between the covers of this publication. Let's go back in time to March of 1930. Herbert Hoover was serving as the 31st President of the United States. King George V ruled over England. Pluto was discovered. Steve McQueen and Sandra Day O'Connor were born. Construction began on the Empire State Building in New York City, the first skyscraper over 100 stories to ever be built. Kentucky Fried Chicken was founded as its precursor, Sanders Court and Cafe. And the good old Motion Pictures Production Code was created. There were still a few good years left for the envelope pushers in Hollywood, but it was the beginning of big changes in motion pictures. Starting to feel the effects of the stock market crash, about 3.5 million Americans were unemployed, almost 9% of the population. A half gallon of milk was 28 cents. A loaf of bread was a dime. The average U.S. home cost about $7,000. And you could put yourself behind the wheel of a shiny new Ford Model A for about $400. So that's where we were as the March 1930 issue of Photoplay magazine hit newsstands. Joan Crawford graces the cover, along with the words, "Who is the most beautiful star in Hollywood?" Well, let's find out, plus much more. First, let me tell you about a couple of the advertisements in this magazine. The first one is for menthol-cooled Spud cigarettes. It's a full-page ad decorated with a cool illustration of a sophisticated man and woman at a cocktail party, sampling hors d'oeuvres presented to them on a tray. The woman has a dark, sleek pixie cut and is wearing a low-cut red dress and a thick silver cuff bracelet. The man is so sophisticated that he is adorning a monocle. He is wearing a black tux with a white shirt, white vest, and white bow tie. Both man and woman are elegantly holding small martini glasses. The advertisement is titled in bold, "They came to caviar and cooler smoke." And here's what the body of the ad says. "Wary sponsors, these people of sophisticated senses, trained in the acquiring of their enjoyments. Thus, they have acquired Spud and Spud's cooler smoke. Realizing the enjoyment of cooler smoke comes not with the surprise of the first sensation, but through the continual happy mouth comfort it affords in repetition. And so the mouths of these people are as groomed and poised as they themselves, keeping their discerning tobacco senses ever responsive to Spud's selected leaf and blend, a full tobacco flavor heightened by Spud's 16% cooler smoke. Thus, these pioneers in pleasure find their 1930 freedom in old-fashioned tobacco enjoyment. At better stands 20 for 20 cents. Another ad I want to share with you is for a product called Zonite. In this ad, there's a portrait of a very serious woman with short, dark, finger-waved hair. And she is framed with the following words. Isn't it less embarrassing for young married women to find out for themselves about feminine hygiene? The ad goes on to read, it must seem almost like prying into the experiences of others when the young married woman seeks the advice of friends upon this intimate personal matter. The question is so vital, so important, that it cannot be ignored. Yet, it must be embarrassing to discuss. Furthermore, 9 times out of 10, she is met either with evasion or with information that is out of date, if not actually wrong and dangerous. Isn't it better to send for this free book and read the facts? Avoid poisonous antiseptics. Until recently, the only powerful antiseptics available for feminine hygiene were poisonous and caustic. Bichloride of mercury, and the compounds of carbolic acid sold under various trade names. Naturally, doctors and trained nurses approved of hygienic cleanliness, but they did not approve of these poisonous germicides. Fortunately, women now have Zonite, the safe antiseptic. Zonite never causes scar tissue nor interferes with normal secretions. And Zonite is powerful. Far more powerful than any dilution of carbolic acid that may be allowed on the body. Send for free Zonite book. And then it says that it can also be used for burns, abrasions, chapped hands, and skin irritations. So I'm not quite exactly sure what this stuff is. I mean, really, what the heck were women doing to themselves back then? So then I found something even more intriguing. I, of course, had to do a quick search of Zonite online. And the very first result brought me to an organization that I had no idea existed. The Museum of Menstruation. I thought this for sure had to be satirical, especially judging by the very outdated-looking website. But it was packed full of history and information. Information I simply didn't have the time to dive into. But it is there for you if you're looking for some light Sunday reading this weekend. I'm not sure if there is a physical museum or if it's online only. There was so much crammed into this website with little to no organization that I couldn't really figure that out with the time I had. But I did scroll all the way down on the homepage, which was a long ways, to discover that the Museum of Menstruation was founded by a man. Not sure how I feel about that, but I can tell you that Mr. Harry Finley is very passionate about women's reproductive health. Okay, let's get back on track here after that little side venture. Let me read you the article, The Girl on the Cover, so we can get to know our cover girl, 1930 Joan Crawford. Every time Joan Crawford steps into a grocery store to buy a dozen eggs, or into a department store to haggle over the high cost of gingham, or to the studio to earn her nickels and dimes, somebody says to her, as if it were a big piece of news, "You're a lucky girl to be married to a boy as fine as Doug Fairbanks." Only once, to our knowledge, has Joan rebelled. She was feeling in a pensive mood and, with chin cupped in hand, she murmured, "I wish just once somebody would say that Doug is a lucky boy to be married to a girl like me." It has always been our aim to please, particularly to please delightful young ladies. Therefore, we'll say it, right out in print. Doug is the luckiest boy in Hollywood to be married to a girl like Joan. The development of Joan Crawford's character is an even greater gesture than the development of her career. Nobody has fought more gallantly than the turbulent, talented Joan. She had the makings, even in those early days. She was troubled with a vague, intangible unrest, which set her to writing poetry. It's a panacea of all youthful melancholia. This was harmless enough, but it was not the only one of her adolescent crimes. She insisted upon winning dancing cups, for which nobody could quite forgive her, and, what is more, she believed that she was madly in love every time a flashing-eyed youngster told her she was the only girl in the world for him. What with collecting cups and young men and penning sonnets, Joan was a pretty impossible person. Oh, you liked her and you found her amusing enough, but after 2 hours of it, you had to do something sturdy and sensible. She was all emotion, all froth, all unformed, youthful idealism. She didn't know what she wanted, nor where to find it. And then, suddenly, she met Doug Fairbanks. The boulevardiers pulled at their long white beards and bet that it wouldn't last a month, that Joan was intrigued only by the ancestral name and new romance. Well, Joan has fooled them, and what is more, has turned out to be one of the most attractive and sensible girls in town. And it hasn't been all Doug's doings. Joan had to have that stuff, or she wouldn't have become the girl she is. They were terribly silly at first, Joan and her dodo. They shut themselves off completely from the rest of the world and talked in an unintelligible language all their own. You can't blame people for thinking it wouldn't last. And when they married, everybody shook their heads. But it's lasted, and for a very good reason. Joan and Doug are in love. The silliness has worn off, and in its place is a grand understanding and companionship. They like to do and talk about the same things, and most vital of all, they know how to laugh together. This domesticity in Joan's is not just the pendulum swinging high, wide, and handsome in the opposite direction. It is a complete change in her life. Each day that she is married to Doug, they find that they like each other better and that there are more dashing and intriguing things to do. Exciting things like buying new drapes for the house and discovering the most divine new sauce to put over a filet mignon and reading new books together. For Joan has been hungry for life, hungry for all the things that her marriage has brought her. Hungry for a home, she never had a real one before, and love. What did her sleek-haired playboys know about love? And companionship. Doug has brought her the good things of life, but Joan has been able to appreciate them, and that makes Doug just as lucky as she is. She's taken hard knocks. She's been broke and miserable, as many worthwhile people have been. But she's had a more bitter battle than that to fight. The most discouraging sort of gossip has sounded in her ears ever since she came to Hollywood, and it doesn't let up. Just because Joan has married a Fairbanks, she thinks she is somebody, they've said. Well, Joan is somebody. And if she prefers a well-appointed table with snowy linen and slim silver candlesticks to the counter of a cheap quick lunch stand, we say more power to her. And if she prefers making a real home for Doug instead of dancing whatever is the new form of the Charleston and stuffy nightclubs, well, then 3 rousing cheers for her. She's been pretty much misunderstood, and the primary difference between the bewildered little girl who first came to Hollywood and the poised mistress of El Jodo is that she used to tell you she was misunderstood, and now she doesn't. Yes, Joan is a lucky girl. But Doug is the luckiest young husband in Hollywood because he has so steadfast and delightful a wife. Now back to what our cover said. Who was the most beautiful star in Hollywood in March of 1930? Well, the editorial staff of Photoplay magazine polled hundreds of people, and here's what the ballot said. There's a few different categories. Hollywood's prized beauty in March of 1930 was Corinne Griffith. Hollywood's youthful beauty was Loretta Young. Hollywood's classic beauty was Billy Dove. And Hollywood's exotic beauty, can you guess? Greta Garbo. So poor Joan Crawford is smiling beautifully on the cover, looking over the words, "Who is the most beautiful star in Hollywood?" And I guess it wasn't her.
What makes someone lie when they don't have to? What makes someone return to a crime scene or wait exactly 48 hours to report someone missing? True crime isn't just about what happened, it's about why. This is The Wanted Files, a research-driven podcast exploring unsolved cases and missing persons through evidence, timelines, and the psychology behind human behavior. No speculation, no sensationalism, just the documented facts and the patterns people leave behind when they think no one is looking. Behind every unanswered question, someone is still waiting. Follow The Wanted Files wherever you listen to podcasts.
Next, I want to read you a segment titled How They Manage Their Homes by Grace Tibbett. You know how much I love a look inside of a star's home. This article takes us inside the home of Milton Sills and Doris Kenyon, and it is subtitled El Sueño, the Dream Home of the Sills, is a transplanted bit of old Spain. The article reads, El Sueño, which is what Doris Kenyon and Milton Sills call their home, is the Spanish for the dream. While they were working together on a picture, they spent all the hours waiting between scenes planning their house. George Fitzmaurice sent his assistant for them one day. Go and find Doris and Milton, he ordered. They are probably building a house somewhere around the lot. Tell them to come back to Earth and get to work. The assistant found them deep in argument, sitting on the studio steps. Well, Milton, we have agreed on one thing, Doris was saying. We will have to find a spot where you can have all the trees and flowers you want. We must find a place where everything will grow that can be grown in California. And, said Milton, if we do not find a spot beautiful enough to serve as a setting for you, we are not going to build any house. It went on for months and months. In California, they spent days looking for their architect. In New York, they spent weeks haunting antique shops and galleries. The result is that they got what they wanted for each other. El Sueño was rightly named. It is a dream come true. But with all its beauty and charm, the thing that amazes me about that home is how Doris manages it. She does it so perfectly and things run so smoothly that it doesn't seem like management at all. That's the great secret. The house revolves about Addie and Edgar, a colored couple who have been with Milton for about 10 years. Addie is general housekeeper. Edgar is not only the chauffeur, but is general overseer of the 6-acre estate. It falls to Edgar's lot to brighten and shine the 2 Rolls-Royces, and to have the satisfaction of knowing that there is nothing quite like them when he gets through. Doris has a personal maid. Her name is Arabella. Her one joy in life is to make Miss Doris happy. I doubt it. Alec is the butler. There are 8 servants in all. Because all of them do their work efficiently, Doris and Milton's home runs like a charm. Milton's garden is one of the most interesting and unusual in the whole country. He has every form of cacti. Nut palm from the tropics, the only one in America, an Australian flame tree, and every species of palm tree. His pride is a border 300 feet and 20 feet wide, which is planted after the colors of the spectrum. Every variety of citrus fruit has been planted. Every variety of flower in the subtropics, suitable to the climate of California, is found in this garden. There is a mango tree which bears fruit. For special occasions, Doris serves a salad consisting of this rare mango, endive, and watercress, sprinkled with currants, using a special salad dressing, which is Addie's secret. Completely surrounded by hedges are wayward walks bordered with flowers of every color. And there are many strange and new plants, for botany is Milton's hobby. Everywhere is the fragrance of pine, sage, eucalyptus, and orange trees, pouring their abundant odors into the salty air of the Pacific. A long veranda beckons one to the hospitable door. The intense sunlight is in vivid contrast to the coolness and restfulness within. Across the hall and up 2 steps is Milton's study, his library. There, simplicity is the keynote. Shelves upon shelves of well-ordered books, the background. Every touch for the comfort and the rest of the reader. Down 2 steps is the drawing room in Spanish spirit. The lining of the living room walls is 16th century Genoese velvet. There are 190 yards altogether, and they are worth a king's ransom. A priest's cope of the 14th century with needlepoint panel embroidered in gold thread hangs on the wall. The arched windows in the living room frame a lovely picture of the valley below, tinged with the blue haze of the distant mountains. Passing through a gaily tiled patio, cool with ferns and a plashing fountain, one sees a long, smooth, unpolished table, the benches, the candelabra with waxen drippings, a real Spanish dining room. Typical of the Sills hospitality, this room has the atmosphere and charm of the old world. One could not find a lovelier setting for the graciousness and friendliness of the host and hostess. When alone, they never eat in their little formal dining room or breakfast nook, but they sit near the fireplace in the library. This is a rather extreme contrast to the starched dignity of the Hungarian butler, who always bows a dozen times over each meal. Picture their dining room on a very special occasion. They are entertaining formally, artists, scientists, authors, playwrights. Miss Kenyon composes charming couplets. It is a part of the scheme that each guest must find his place at the table according to the couplet that best suits his personality. The story goes that once a motion picture flapper had been found in the seat intended for an astronomer. She mistook the sign of the stars to be a symbol for herself. To her mind, all the stellar constellations were not in the heavens. Opening from the dining room is the patio where the Sills hold their barbecues. Picture any summer night, a sky brilliant with stars, a lazy moon creeping across the sky, dipping her white fingers into the trees, making shadows across the white gravel below, adding romance to the enchanting stillness of the secluded garden. In the center of the patio is a huge pepper tree, with shining red berries and branches that bend to the earth. An open fireplace, a long table set with ripe fruits of every variety, tempting foods in gaily colored bowls. From the balcony of Miss Kenyon's room may be seen the sea, the lights of Santa Monica, and the faint line of the hills against the sky. Miss Kenyon's favorite color, green, predominates in her bedroom. Every soft shade of this color has been fused in the taffeta drapes, the chenille rug, the artistic furniture. Wherever you turn are mirrors of every size and shape. On mirrored shelves are the newest perfumes and decorative bottles. The large mirror in Doris's bedroom came from a palace on the border of Spain and France. It is a French mirror with a 14th century motif of cherubs and birds. Her lamps are a real rose quartz, a real jade, and a real crystal. Doris's inkwell, from which she answers her fan mail, is of rose quartz. The pen is solid gold, and the pen holder is a bird of paradise, in shades of mauve, purple, and yellow. Her bed is gay with rose taffeta, strewn with little pillows and her favorite fashion dolls. Her green tiled bath with its sunken tub is ornamented with a lovely fountain in the shape of a golden fish, astride of which is a little boy designed and patterned after her own little son, Kenyon. Across her balcony is Milton's room, a perfect masculine room. Deep red covers the bed and is found in the drapes and adorning the walls. And from the balcony, the distant mountains rise sternly against the blue sky, and the waving trees bend and sway their patterns across the room. Upon leaving the hacienda, one turns to have a last glimpse. On the white walls below Doris's balcony is an inscription that reads something like this: "Life is a dream. Under the shogging circles of the moon, nothing endures but love." Last year, Milton had a severe nervous breakdown, which necessitated his going to an Eastern sanitarium for rest and treatment. So Doris went east as well, and took an apartment in New York for her little boy and herself, where she could be near Milton. She kept herself busy with voice lessons and made such remarkable strides that last fall she was ready for her concert debut on the New York stage. The lessons which had been the means of diverting her mind from anxieties had fostered a talent which would bring pleasure to others. Now they are both back in Hollywood, busy with plans to continue with their respective screen careers, and happy to be reunited at El Sueno. Before we leave the Sills home, they also shared with Photoplay what a typical dinner may look like laid upon their beautiful Spanish table. So I, of course, have to share that with you. Here is a typical family dinner at El Sueno. I hope I'm saying that right. They may begin with avocado cocktail and cream of mushroom soup, to moving along to saddle of lamb, don't eat babies. And a typical side to accompany it would be French-style new peas and carrot surprise. I have no idea what that is. If you have room for dessert after all that fun, you may be served good old classic vanilla ice cream with hot chocolate sauce and coffee. Now, let's say Doris and Milton have guests coming over and want to kick things up a bit and show them a fancy time. A formal dinner at El Sueno may look something like this: caviar, nuts and olives, consommé dame blanche, California river trout, squab with white wine sauce, don't eat babies, broiled sliced oranges, new peas, onion soufflé, endive and grape salad, fruit dessert, crackers and cheese, and coffee. Hopefully they throw some cocktails in there too. A sad little editorial note about the Sills. Milton sadly passed away in September of 1930, just 6 months after this article was published in Photoplay. He and Doris were playing tennis at their beloved home when he suffered a massive heart attack. He was only 48 years old. Finally, a section titled, "Do you believe this?" First the stars, then all the rest of us answer, "I do" to these things, founded on fact or fancy, by Janet French. Each morning, all the little movie stars tumble out of their trundle beds and chant the articles of their faith. Hollywood is built upon tradition. Even the smallest, most unpretentious little belief assumes mammoth proportions. These traditions mate and flourish until they almost become a creed. Pretty soon they break out of Hollywood and become the common property of us all. What the film folks say this afternoon, we'll say tomorrow morning. The Hollywood Credo, born in the Hollywood mind, has gradually swept the country. And it must be right, just because it has to be repeated so often. For instance, once a Russian Grand Duke was invited to Pickfair for ham and eggs. The Pickford Fairbanks press agent wrote a story about it. Other guests told their pals. Pretty soon, the tradition grew and spread that you couldn't get a Pickfair invitation unless you had a noble coat of arms on your cigarette case. Lillian Gish turned down a cocktail at a Hollywood party. Once, she stayed home and read a book instead of going to a big reception. Another article of faith was born, that Lillian was a disembodied spirit, untouched by the foibles of the social world. There are hundreds of these articles of half-faith, believed by millions of us because we hear them so often. Here are some of the most famous. Do you really believe that Lillian Tashman is the best-dressed woman on the screen? That Billy Dove is the most beautiful? That nobody ever says no to Cecil B. DeMille? That assistant directors date up all the extra girls and that they get a job the next day? That anyone who can sing even slightly better than the choir soprano at home will be an overnight sensation in talkies? That 5 uninvited guests arrive for every invited one at all Hollywood parties? That the 18-day diet will take off 18 pounds in 18 days? That Jack Barrymore enjoys shocking young lady interviewers? That Lon Chaney really does not like publicity? That every foreign star will fail before the microphone? That Greta Garbo always wears sloppy tweed coats? That every picture with an unhappy ending will be praised by the critics, and that every picture with a happy ending will be a box office success? That publicity men could keep any scandal out of any paper if they only would? that Roman Navarro goes to church every Sunday, that Clara Bow always wears red satin slippers to football games, that the best hockey performances so far have been given by film stars, that any woman past 30 is an old-timer, that a home without a swimming pool is a hove, that any 500 people in one room with enough liquor will have a good time, that every divorced couple is still awfully good friends, that if you call electricians by their first names, you're a good scout, that every extra elevated to stardom forgets his old friends, that Joan Crawford and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. will separate, that Janet Gaynor and Lydell Peck will separate, that Marion Nixon and Edward Hillman will separate, that Tay Garnett and Patsy Ruth Miller will separate, that all actors are crazy, that the only conversation worthwhile is picture talk, that opening nights are dull but you must be seen at them, that Irving Thalberg is a genius, that Hollywood is the most important city in the world, that any girl in the world would fall for Richard Dix, that every producer speaks with a Jewish accent, that every girl wants to get into the pictures, that Charlie Chaplin will have to make a talkie, that Erich von Stroheim can't make a picture for less than $1 million, that the imported stage stars think they're better than everyone else, that Greta Garbo was never in love with Jack Gilbert, that Clara Bow will never marry Harry Richman, that all gag men steal their stuff from a joke book, that a Beverly Hills address gives prestige, that having a famous father, mother, sister, or brother is a handicap to success, that your best scenes are always cut out, and that every woman star is jealous of every other woman in the picture. Before I leave, I just want to share a couple little snippets from the gossip column. So we're going to hear what James R. Quirk of Photoplay's Close-Ups and Long Shots has to say in March of 1930. And if you want to hear more celebrity gossip throughout the years, head on over to Patreon because I share it every single month. This first one is about Charlie Chaplin, one of the most famous silent film stars, of course. And at the time this publication came out, the first feature-length motion picture, The Jazz Singer, was released just 2.5 years prior. So Hollywood was right in the middle of the grand transformation between silent and talkies. And a lot of stars didn't survive the transition. No one yet knows what happened in that week when Chaplin went into a secret session with the microphone and the sound experts in his studio. But his next picture, City Lights, will be silent. The outstanding figure of the motion picture has probably also been rejected by the sound reproducers. Chaplin is getting tired anyhow. It is quite probable that the picture he has had in production for over a year will be his last. But 50 years from now, they may still be running Chaplin pictures. And millions of people still unborn will rock in their seats with laughter and bless the little fellow for the enjoyment he contrived for them way back in the days before the talkies came. But wouldn't it be a good joke on those scientific sound research chaps if, in a few months, they stumbled onto a way to do justice to the voices of Chaplin and Gilbert, just as they had stumbled onto a lot of other developments? Columbus discovered America while searching for Asia. The talking motion picture of today is the direct result of a search for ways to improve the telephone. Professor Francis Powell of the Department of Spoken English Language at Smith College has a peeve against talking pictures. He says that he and his National Association of Teachers of Speech are sore because the producers do not realize their responsibilities to the public and demands that they train their actors in good English. How about Professor Powell try taking John Gilbert's job? And I have no doubt that among the lady teachers, we could find a good supply of Corinne Griffiths, Clara Bows, and Greta Garbos. Few things annoy my ear more than the vocal affectations of the average professional teaching voice. But then, I never did like school anyhow. Art Accord, once a cowboy hero of the screen, says all his friends have deserted him since he fell upon bad times and lost his job. He was pinched with 2 pints of liquor in his pockets and told the judge he might not be able to pay the fine and might have to go to the hoosegow. When I was making lots of money, everybody was my friend. Now I don't seem to have any friends anymore, he said. Poor guy. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know from March of 1930, hot off the press. Thank you for joining me today, and you can expect some more hot off the press episodes in the future here and there on the Stars of the Golden Age feed. It is always fun to go back in time. But next week, back to our typical format covering the life of one of our favorite stars of the Golden Age. Thank you all so much for listening. Reach for the positive in every day, be kind to everyone you encounter, and have a great rest of your week. For this episode, I used the March 1930 issue of Photoplay magazine. And I also pulled stats from 1930 from an article on Stacker.com from November 17th, 2020 by Ben Whitstein.